the fish no Mi model Azure Dragon. That is the fruit. Kaido hit Big Mom in the back 4. And that's the fruit we're here to talk about. So this right here is going to be another poll video. If you guys don't know, here on this channel, I love to hold polls just to see what the community thinks about certain questions, hypotheticals, theories, and etc. And today's video, of course, will be focused on that devil fruit. So, let's get right into it. The first poll of the night, we only got 4 to go over. It says, who do you want to end up with the Azure Dragon devil fruit? If you had to go back in time, stop Kaido, don't hit Big Mom. Oh, Katakuri, eat that fruit. Ivankov, eat it before Big Mom gets there. If you could alter the course of One Piece, who would you give that fruit to? Obviously, first pick is Kaido. Second would be Katakuri. Third would be Ivankov. And fourth, I noticed a lot of people don't know why I put Zoro here, but boom, Zoro's swords is the fourth option. So getting right down to it, the Zoro sword option, this was dropped in an SBS where Oda said if he had to give the Straw Hats devil fruits, he would give Zoro's sword the fish no Mi, model Azure Dragon, Kaido's DF. We don't know what sword he was referring to because, of course, only one of them can actually eat it. If I had to guess which one Oda would have given it to, I would say simply that it would be the Wado Ichimonji, because that right there is the one sword that Zoro simply cannot get rid of. Enma, Shisui, Kitetsu, Yubashiri, like those swords, yeah, I think Zoro does like them, but if he were to lose one or trade them, I don't think that would bother him too much. Hell, if Zoro could only make one of his blades black, I think it would also just be the Wado Ichimonji. So yeah, these are our options. Personally, I would lean towards just giving it to Kaido. Funny enough, I think I do follow the poll here. My first pick would, of course, be Kaido because I think it just fits him so well. The Drunken Dragon is just beautiful for Wano. Of course, Zoro's swords, I think, would be a fun second pick. Like, how would that even work, right? He whips out the sword. Does he still use the sword? Does the sword, you know, fly off on its own? Or is the tip of the blade a dragon and he like points it and it shoots Bodo breaths? Like, I don't know how that would work. I think this would just be a lot of fun in general. Third up, I would pick Katakuri just because I could see him with the devil fruit. I wonder what the devil fruit would look like on a person that has a smaller stature than Kaido even, right? Kaido's this big, bulky guy. You know, when he uses his hybrid form, he looks like he could throw a mean punch. But for Katakuri, I feel like he'd be more on the speed demon aspect just because of his build. Ivankov, I don't think would be a bad pick, but they're not my favorite pick, right? Oda did draw the what if Ivankov ate the fruit, and I just think it looks absolutely cursed. If Ivankov had like a different head, or if their head wasn't just so damn big for no reason, I would like it, but I don't know. And then even then, like, would Ivankov still do the death winks? Would they get stronger because they're a dragon? I don't know, brother. I really don't. So yeah, like I said, I do tend to agree with this poll right here. And now let's get into the comments and see what people are talking about. The dragon form from Eva that Oda drew absolutely sent me. I'll pick it just for the comedy of it. Yeah, like, also, if we were to give Kaido's devil fruit to other people, what would Kaido eat? You know, because this was the first fruit that Kaido saw, and he devoured it in an instant. If he did not get the Azure Dragon fruit, would he maybe have ended up with another God Valley devil fruit? Like, imagine Dragon, right? We assume Dragon ate his fruit here at God Valley. If Kaido didn't get this one, he might have just ended up with Dragon's devil fruit, whatever it is, right? Whether it's like the Win no Mi or some kind of other mythical Zoan. I think Kaido would not have left God Valley without devouring something. This says, Zoro's Dragon Enma versus Shamrock's Cerberus Sword. Yeah, I think that'd be sick. Zoro taming the dragon also, I think would be a lot of fun. Because we know that, you know, fruits, more or less, Zoans at least, have a will of their own. So if the sword were to eat it, we'd have to go through a whole thing where Zoro has to tame the Azure Dragon, which would be pretty cool. But at that point, you'd kind of end up with Zoro piece. So I think that right there is why Oda didn't go that route. Like, yeah, we'd have to put a lot of focus on Zoro if he did have that. I feel like you gotta be higher than Brago when you come up with some of these polls, bro. Maybe. For some of these polls, yes. This one I feel like is an easy slam dunk because this was brought up in the chapter. As far as smoking goes, I don't really smoke. Haven't smoked since college, funny enough. But I do smoke cigarettes every now and then. You know, I am a cigarette lover. This says, Zoro swords would be amazing. Kaido is the superior user because the dragon fruit immediately turned his already indestructible body into a super tank, maximizing his power and durability to the absolute destructive limit. Even though Kaido couldn't awaken it, he was essentially a physical beast who could leverage the fruit's immense power to its terrifying peak, earning him the title of the world's strongest creature. But here's the thing, without the devil fruit, I wonder what Kaido would have been like. I do like that what if. You know, Kaido, now that he's older, now that he's experienced what the world has to offer, he's kind of become a hockey man, or at least that's what he preaches, right? Hey, Luffy, devil fruits are great and all, but let me tell you, hockey is the pinnacle of power. You need hockey. What would Kaido be like without this fruit? I'm voting Eva. I love Cat, but honestly, I think the mochi fruit is much more interesting and creative than the dragon fruit, and Eva Dragon with the huge face looks hilarious. It looks so hilarious, I don't want to see it. That's how I go. I don't like Eva's big head, man. Eva, whenever they turn into like a regular sized person, amazing. Eva with the big head, I don't know, man. And then, of course, they make their head bigger with their devil fruit, which we would miss out on Ivankov's hormone fruit, so I wonder how that would go. You know, if Ivankov didn't have the hormone fruit, what would they have? You know, outside of the dragon, I don't know. I love the idea of the dragon saying hee-haw. Okay, that's the one W I'll give. The hee-haw would be hilarious. I put Ivan simply because I think he would look wild in dragon form. Dragon Zoro swinging his hilariously underproportioned swords with his stubby little arms. Here's the thing. Who's to say the dragon doesn't get smaller, though? All right, maybe the dragon makes itself smaller so that it could fit into the Wado Ichimonji. Also, another thing we have to keep in mind is that the sword that Zoro has that becomes the Azure Dragon, it would have a hybrid form, kind of like how Funkfried from Spandam, whenever it goes into like this half elephant form, it simply gets like the tusks added to the blade. So if you turn your sword into a dragon, I do think it would just simply set the sword on fire, right? Either set the sword on fire, maybe it'll get clouds because the Azure Dragon has like the flame cloud surrounding it. I might even get serrated blades to, you know, show the teeth off from the dragon. I don't know. I think that'd be really fascinating. Hopefully Oda one day goes back and draws that what if. Also, the what if with Katakuri. You know, the minute we saw Ivankov was about to eat the fruit, Oda did drop the drawing in an SPS. I think we could get that from Katakuri in the next volume or two. Now, next poll. Can any devil fruit awaken? Depending on the user, of course. Because just because you have a devil fruit doesn't mean you can necessarily awaken it, right? You need the skill, you need the body, the will, the hockey, etc. You need certain stats to actually get there. And I will admit, this was kind of like a one guy thing. I saw one guy say, oh, why do people think devil fruits can awaken? And it's like, well, we haven't heard otherwise. You know, to our knowledge, every devil fruit can awaken. Nobody's ever tried to disprove that yet. So I had to ask the question just to make sure we're all on the same boat. And it looks like overwhelmingly, people do believe that any fruit can awaken. Of course, given the right user or ability. So we're not going to spend too long on this poll. Primarily, this is set up for the next one. The top comment says, based on Vegapunk's theory, any devil fruits spawned by someone else's desire. To awaken the devil fruit, you gotta live up to the desire of the fruit. For example, Nika, freedom, liberation, and that is why Luffy was able to awaken it. Leopard fruit, blood-thirsty predators, that is Rob Lucci's personality. String fruit, manipulation, that is Dofi. Mochi fruit, love of donuts. Katakuri will die for a donut. Mochi and donuts, is that? They're not the same, are they? Okay, so it looks like mochi donuts are real. I just never seen somebody mix the two. Interesting, okay. Tremor fruit, destruction, but Whitebeard always wanted a family, that is why he could not awaken it. Dragon fruit, deity of the people, but Kaido always wanted to destroy, and that is why he was not able to awaken it. I think this is partially true. You know, because the Zoans kind of have a will of their own, I wonder if there's part of you that has to tame the Zoan will, or I don't know. Like, it's so open, right? When it comes to awakenings, we haven't really had too much with it. Well, yes, Vegapunk said it spawned from somebody's desire, but they never said you had to line up with the desire to actually awaken it. And then, of course, right, I think Kaido talked about, oh, you know, your power and your will has to be on that level to awaken it. You got to have that skill. So I think it's up in the air. I don't mind this theory, though. I think it's pretty solid. Hopefully, in the future, Oda does drop more details as to how someone can awaken. And hopefully, we do get a Logia awakening sooner rather than not. This is, yeah, probably, but I don't think Oda's gonna draw us an awakened jacket user. Yeah, some devil fruits would get kind of crazy. Not just the jacket, but imagine like the spring. Would the floors become springy? The buildings become spring? Like, the jacket, I'm just assuming everything turns into clothing. Or maybe you turn everybody around you into clothing. It's just a weird devil fruit. Like, some of these devil fruits, I don't think Oda even knows how to awaken them. Like, what the F would this actually look like? So, like, Zoans, for example, I think are an easy slam dunk. Like, Zoans, give them the Hagoromo, make them look a little bit cooler. You're good to go. Let's see. We got the bomb fruit. Kilo would be interesting. Like, would you make everything around you weighted? I guess. Or maybe, like, everything just sinks down to the ground because it's so heavy. Awakened Hana. Does the entire environment just become your body? As far as Mr. Galdino, we can kind of imagine what that would be like. Wapol, he's got the munch fruit, which you awaken that, and I don't know. Because Paramecias, right? Paramecias generally just affect your surroundings? I mean, he can already eat everything. I mean, I don't know what that would look like. Would it just turn into giant mouths, like a domain expansion? Like, oh, everything's being eaten by Wapol. He's the devourer of worlds, the devourer of towns. Daz Bones. I guess everything turns into blades. Kind of hurt to walk at that point. Bon Clay with the Mane no Mi. The Mimic. Mimicking buildings? I mean, I guess you could maybe change your environments or maybe spawn clones. Yeah, I feel like for Paramecias, that's where it gets really wacky. And I will admit, that's where you could get really creative, though. And then, of course, for Logias, though, we have no great examples yet. Hopefully we get it, because I just feel like Paramecias and Zoans, like, they kind of already encapsulate everything. Like, what would an Awakened Logia even look like? Maybe you get both? Like, you transform and you affect your environment? That would be what I would go to, just to show that they are, like, the pinnacle of devil fruits again. Remember that? Back in early One Piece, it was like, oh, you have a Logia? That's like the rarest of the rare, the best of the best. Oh my god, nobody can hurt you unless they have Haki or your natural weakness. And then nowadays, it's like, oh, Logia? Yikes. Sorry about that, buddy. I need to see every devil fruit awakened by the end of the story. I need the funk. Okay. It looks like everybody wants the jacket because it's just so absurd. Nice. Oh my god, a third jacket comment? Yeah, it turns the user into a full suit. I mean, they're kind of already a full suit though, right? Isn't this, like, objectively true? If you're waiting for every fruit in existence to awaken as proof, tough luck. You're never getting that, especially with some of the users. But as Kaido said, here we go. Mind and body need to catch up for the fruit to awaken. Doubt Kaido all you want, but that is Oda telling us how it works. There we go. I was looking for, like, the exact line, so I appreciate that, brother. But yeah, generally, I just believe that every fruit can awaken. I did get one guide. I wanted to see if I was maybe just crazy, but it does look like for the most part, everybody's on the same page. Now, for the Katakuri hypothetical polls, here we go. If Katakuri got the Azure Dragon Devil... Sorry if I'm saying Azure Dragon a lot. I know it's the Seryu fruit, but Azure Dragon just sounds solid, right? Would he awaken Kaido's DF? That is the question here. We do know that Katakuri managed to awaken the Mochi no Mi. So, could he awaken another devil fruit? A devil fruit that was meant for him to an extent, right? His mom was going to gift it to him. 76% of people say yes. He would have awakened it, which is kind of crazy. This is not the number I was expecting. And then we have 24% saying no. He wouldn't. If Kaido could not awaken it, Katakuri would not have awakened it either. Let's look at the comments. Also, for my opinion, I don't really have a strong one, but if you held a gun to my head, if you held my wife and my family hostage, and I had to pick, or else they'd be executed, I would say yes. I believe yes more than no. Like, for Katakuri, right? If he did it once, I do think he could do it again. I think he totally could. And of course, we had this comment back here. I don't know if this is like exactly true with the Azure Dragon, deity of the people, but if that is what it is, right? If this is the headcanon we want to go with, then yeah, I think Katakuri does fit the bill, right? His whole goal is to protect his family, protect his sisters and siblings. So yeah, I'd say he could do it. This says, yes, because it is very likely that the awakening depends on your will and if it aligns with the fruit or not. The people we've seen awaken so far all have characteristics. Wait, Dopey's the puppet master, Cat loves... Oh, wait, is this the same person? It's not the... They're like echoing the same sentiment, but they're different people. Brother, the world is vast, man. Look at that. It's like Captain John and Captain Kidd. My God. The Azure Dragon is supposed to be a protector, which is Cat's whole reason for living. Kaido didn't awaken it because all he wanted to do was to destroy. Whitebeard didn't awaken because his fruit was all about destruction. What? Huh? It's like the exact same thing, but structured differently. Am I crazy? No, they're different people. Wow, that's interesting. Like, you really just see the mind rub connection. Like I said, I'm pretty mixed on this take. I don't think it's bad. I just need to see somebody actually like say it in the story. Which you could say, oh, Sai, you need everything spelled out to you. Yeah, kind of, you know. I like the idea, but I think part of it is a little bit headcanon. But I respect it, though. I do respect it. Also, you said Kid loves to play with junk, which is hilarious. I just skimmed over this part because it was kind of just echoing this. But yeah, Law of the Doctor, Kid loves to play with junk is just so funny, man. Yeah, overall, though, I do agree. If we were to go down the Devil Fruit will alignment, Cat would match. Cat would definitely match. Hello, it is Sai from the future, and I just wanted to weigh in a little bit more as to why I'm on the fence about this idea. Like I said, structurally, it makes a lot of sense. Devil Fruits, Zoans at least, have a will of their own. So your will matching the Zoan's will, or Fruit's will, to awaken, I think that makes sense. Oda might even come out and explain awakenings as such at a later date. No problems with that. But where I get hung up is more of a personal thing. But this would mean that if you eat a devil fruit that does not vibe with your personality, or your dream even, then you're SOL out of an awakening. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. It's kind of like Conqueror's Hockey, where people say, oh, you need to have ambitions of a conqueror to get Conqueror's Hockey. That's why people like Katakuri shouldn't have it. Sanji shouldn't have it. I don't like that mindset. I like to imagine that if you work hard enough, if you have the talent, if you train, you can get that ability. I know not everybody's going to agree with that. That might be a hot take. But it sucks knowing that, for Conqueror's Hockey, for example, that you have to have X personality to get the ability, or you have to be born with it to get that ability. And in that genre falls in the whole, oh, your personality or will has to match the devil fruit. I don't like that, because if you eat a random devil fruit per se, like let's say I eat the rally no mi, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to rally on somebody. Boom, I just never awaken, no matter how hard I train with that devil fruit, because I don't personally agree with that fruit. It's like, okay, like that's just not going to happen. Right? I guess another fruit, random. Like, let's say the spring no mi. I don't know what kind of will you need for that, but let's say I'm not a big fan of bouncing back. Well, I'm just never going to get an awakening because my mindset isn't there. I could be a billion-berry bounty pirate. I could have, you know, crazy Ryuo, crazy observation. I could even have Conqueror's Hockey, but because I don't like springs, I just can't awaken. I don't like that mindset. I feel like it does, in a way, gatekeep certain abilities. Like I said, this is all personal opinions. Just don't like stopping people from getting abilities despite them having the talent, the power, and etc. You know, kind of like Conqueror's Hockey. It's like, damn, dude, like, what if I just want to stay home and protect my family? Will I just not get Conqueror's Hockey because I don't want to conquer anything? Because I don't have crazy, lofty ambitions? That's kind of where I get hung up. I just don't like gatekeeping things from certain characters, but like I said, that's just me. Let me know what you guys think about this down below. I still think this is a pretty valid theory. I think Oda could go this route, but I kind of hope he doesn't. If Katakuri had Kaido's mythical Zoan, he actually might awaken it because the Azure Dragon... Okay, is this true? I guess I might as well just look it up. What is the Azure Dragon about? Is that good? Is that a good way to type it in? Azure Dragon, or Quinlong in Chinese, is a divine dragon god that symbolizes the east and the spring season. 4 symbols of Chinese constellations represents power, wisdom, and protection. There we go. Azure Dragons often associated with water, storms, and considered a powerful guardian in Chinese mythology, feng shui, and various forms of art and literature. That right there is what the Google AI overview said to me. So the word protector did jump in, but I feel like that might just be common for most of the dragons. Because generally, if you think about a deity, they do protect something, but yeah, either way, I like it. I'll go with it. They go on, and they say that it's about righteousness, and Katakuri's main goal is to protect his family. Plus, his intense focus and honor, like stabbing himself to be fair to Luffy, shows he has the mental will to conquer the fruit's spirit. I like that. Yeah, Katakuri was a great villain during Whole Cake. I feel like because so much time has passed, that people are now kind of sour about Katakuri, which I don't really get. You know, when you mention Katakuri in the big 2025, people are like, why are you talking about that YC1? We moved past that, but let's be real, guys. Katakuri's great. You know, kind of like how Rob Lucci was a previous villain, and then he got buffed and then brought into Egghead. I think Katakuri will get buffed as well, and he'll be brought back at some point. Hopefully, he fights against Blackbeard to save his sister, because, you know, like we've all been kind of echoing, he loves his family. So I could see him running the fade with Blackbeard pretty soon. How will that turn out? I don't know, though. It's not looking good for Cat, man. Blackbeard's record, kind of untarnished. He is such a cool, calm character that I truly think he would. Unlocking Future Sight down to near perfection and having it trigger autopilot is some feat. Can't stop everything, but nice to have. If Oda wanted him to, okay, the meta answer, right? Yeah, if Oda wanted it, he could do it, yeah. You could say this with pretty much everything. If you want to end a debate, just say this: if Oda wanted to. This says, for all that think Kaido was not awakened, he had Zone awakening clouds behind him. It's hard to believe he was not awakened. So I actually responded to this a lot earlier. My response was essentially that his hybrid form did not have the clouds. And what people initially thought were the clouds were simply the flame clouds that the Chinese dragons and Eastern dragons typically have, which is what they use to climb in the sky, right? Because they don't fly, they climb. So that's simply what it is, which of course Momonosuke has as well. He'd have awakened it because, unlike Kaido, his ambition wasn't destroyed. That's also true, right? Kaido was very, very depressed. When Kaido was introduced, he literally jumped off a cliff so that he could die. Katakuri, not exactly in that same boat. He wants to protect his family and would do anything to accomplish that, i.e. letting Luffy go because he promised he'd come back and take care of Big Mom, who was the biggest danger to her family at the time. The Azure Dragon fruit is about protecting something, which aligns with Cat's ideology. All right, there we have it. Looks like everybody's pretty much on the same boat when it comes to this. I wish we got one comment saying no, actually. Let me scroll down and find a no comment. All right, here we go. Dragons are loners, which is why it works for Kaido. Katakuri is too all about his family to awaken the Dragon Zone. Not saying he wouldn't be skilled or a threat, but he wouldn't awaken it. But Kaido also didn't awaken it either, though. And Kaido, like you said, is a loner. So if we're going off of like the whole will of the fruit and whether or not you align with the animal or mythological creature, I'd say that Katakuri kind of fits it more, at least. But that's just me. I don't see him awakening the fruit because he doesn't align with it. Eastern dragons aren't tamed by force, but by compassion. You don't awaken a mythological zone just by surviving a near-death experience. You awaken it by aligning with the fruit's true will. These dragons help the worthy, not the proud. That's why I don't think Kaido awakened his fruit either. He tried to dominate it, not understand it. Maybe Momo will awaken it one day, which would be really cool, by the way. You know, Momo has an artificial devil fruit. If he awakens that, Vegapunk is cracked. But he says it's because a true dragon responds to respect, not fear. I'd argue that's Katakuri's character, though, right? I mean, Katakuri, right? He acts like this really proud guy, but deep down, he does that so that nobody hurts his family, right? He puts on a strong front so that nobody will mess with Brûlé or mess with the Charlotte family ever again. And I'd say that is pretty in line with being worthy, you know, helping others. So that's my take on it. I couldn't really find too many no's. But But yeah, on to the next poll. Last poll. We're keeping this video short, sweet, concise, and simple. Would Luffy have beaten Katakuri at Whole Cake Island if he had the Azure Dragon Devil Fruit? If Kat did not have the Mochi Fruit, would Luffy actually win? 38% say yes, Luffy would win regardless. But 62%, the majority, say that Luffy would have lost and that Katakuri would have taken the W here. I don't know where I fall. If we were going off of Kaido and his usage of the fruit, I'd say Luffy would lose. I would. But I also think that the plot matters here, right? You know, where Luffy's at in the story, I feel like Oda would have brought down the dragon fruit. He might have nerfed it a little bit just so that Luffy could win. I know that's not the funnest answer, saying, oh, plot armor. I even think the first comment here is about plot armor too. But that's kind of true. If we're going off of Wano's display of the Azure Dragon, no, I think Luffy would lose. But if we want to go with the meta answer, Oda would make Luffy win. Nah, the strongest plot armor. No one stands a chance against Luffy regardless of fruit types. Plot would dictate he wins, yes, but technically, he shouldn't. Lame answer, but Luffy will always win the fight if it's plot dependent. Yeah, it looks like I probably should put somebody else here, right? Like, oh, Zoro or Sanji, or, you know, Zoro and Sanji. I think asking if Luffy would lose a fight, especially when it's the climactic battle, right? A fight he needs to win, that's a toughie. Yeah, that's a tough one. Mostly Luffy would still win because Katakuri would push him into Gear 5 earlier. That would be interesting. Yeah. If Luffy got whooped really badly there, would he have awakened? Well, Luffy lost to Kaido early on in Wano when he didn't awaken. You could say Luffy's life wasn't in danger, but Kaido did knock him out. Yeah, Mythical Zoan regen would have helped in the fight's endurance. If he's awakened, probably would have regen the stab to himself by the end of the fight. That is also true. You know, Mythical Zoans, they do get that crazy boost in stats, which I think is what Katakuri was missing. I don't know if you guys ever saw, but somebody did go back and they counted the number of times Luffy hit Katakuri and the number of times Katakuri hit Luffy, and it was night and day, right? Kat hit Luffy so many times, but on the opposite end, Luffy, I think, hit Kat like 20 times, and that was it. So if we're going off of that, yeah, Kat's endurance was not that great. So if he did have a general stat boost, maybe that would push him over the edge. Luffy's will is too indomitable. Katakuri would be the captain of the Big Brother Psy Accent Pirates. Second Pirate King after Roger, Luffy would have to wait in line. What is going on here? Cat already had one of the best fruits in existence. It had the properties of both rubber and gum. And it was flammable. And it had Logia-like properties. It was classified as a special paramecia, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it was really good. Cat's fruit is amazing. But, I mean, the Azure Dragon fruit, right? Like, if I had to hold a poll, which I'm not gonna do. I've been spamming polls left and right. But if I held another one, which one generally, when given to the most generic person out there, would be the strongest fruit? I think most people would pick the dragon. Luffy was extra heated because Cat was copying all of his moves. There wouldn't be all the mind games that lead up to Future Sight. Ooh, you're right. Yeah, if there were no mind games, would Luffy even try to lock in and learn Future Sight? Would he even know what's happening? Kaido did activate Future Sight when he was in Dragon Mode, and he dodged Luffy's attacks, but he wasn't mimicking it, right? You could argue that the mimicry is a key factor in the fight. Whoever Luffy fights, he will win. That is called plot armor. And the thing is, too, I still think Luffy can lose. But when it comes to plot armor, it does guarantee that one day you will win in the future. A great example would be Emu here at Elbaf. I think Luffy could easily lose to Emu. But we all know that Luffy's going to have a round 2 or round 3, and then he's going to win. Kind of like his fight against Crocodile, where he lost the first time, lost the second time, and then the third time, same arc, he came back, he won. Kaido, another great example, right? Luffy lost in the beginning, he came back, lost again, got back up, and then he won. So plot armor, yes, but I think it doesn't always activate. All right, so we're coming in after the first recording session to get 2 more polls in. You might be wondering why I'm doing this, but I feel like these are somewhat valid questions. And of course, I looked at the video length and I was like, okay, 30 minutes? Nah, we can do better than that. So here we go. Katakuri, what is he going to do next? 1, he stays home and defends Whole Cake Island. 2, he goes after Pudding. 3, he regroups with Big Mom. Or 4, other question mark. And I put that there just for people to explain themselves. Like, I have no idea what other would be. Maybe he joins Cross Guild. Maybe Katakuri retires, I guess. You know, other could really just mean anything other than these 3 options. So, generally, I think Katakuri is going to be very important moving forward. 1, he has Conqueror's Haki. And we know that you need Conqueror's Haki to more or less hurt the Holy Knights. So in that regard, I could totally see him getting a God Knight matchup in the future. Outside of that, he is the next generation, right? After Big Mom retires, whenever that is, or if she's dead, if Big Mom is gone, I do think Katakuri will step up and potentially be the next captain. People debate whether it would be him or Perospero. Either way, his name is on that list. And not just that, but we know he's going to be important because Oda himself, and of course Oda's editors, brought in Katakuri to play a key role in Film Red. Yes, movies are not canon, but I do think they get you in the right headspace of where Oda's going to, right? It's kind of like how, Oda talked about Tot Musica and how there is a demon like that in the world of One Piece. We haven't seen it yet though, right? These movies, I think they do matter, or at least they kind of spoil what might be in store for us in the future. So yes, I do think Katakuri, Oven will be important. In Film Red, they did team up with the red-haired pirates against Tot Musica. I thought that was kind of fascinating, especially when you consider nowadays, right? Katakuri has a bone to pick with Blackbeard because of Pudding, and Shanks also has a bone to pick with Blackbeard. Maybe these 2 forces will collide, and we get this weird collaboration just like in Film Red, where Cat and Shanks work together to fight Blackbeard instead of Tot Musica. So, as far as what I would vote for, I lean towards regrouping with Big Mom and going after Pudding. I could totally see him saying, hey, a lot is happening. People are attacking the island for the poneglyphs. Pudding is gone. Big Mom is missing. What do we do first? Well, let's make sure Big Mom's okay. I think this is what he would do first. And then, of course, after that, they would go after Pudding. Maybe Katakuri won't feel the need to go after Big Mom because last we saw, Big Mom, of course, fell into a volcano, and nearby Wano was Smoothie, Daifuku, and Mont Dior. There are Big Mom pirates in the vicinity, so maybe Katakuri just simply waits at home until they arrive. Maybe he calls them on the Denden Mushi. Maybe he shows up to help them look for Big Mom. But either way, I do think consulting Big Mom first on what to do would be his prerogative. But here comes the kicker, right? We know how Katakuri feels about his siblings. He loves them to hell and back. And the reason why he felt the need to portray a strong man in Whole Cake Island, right? The whole thing where, he never lies on his back, he walked out of Big Mom's womb. He's never gotten a scratch in his life. That was all so that he could protect Brûlé and his sisters and brothers. So if somebody kidnaps his sister, I don't think he'll be in the right headspace. Maybe he doesn't wait for Big Mom, and instead he goes after the Blackbeard pirates, which of course, if Shanks is also gunning for them, maybe we do get that Katakuri and Shanks team up like we saw in Film Red. I think that would be pretty awesome. If Katakuri goes at it alone though, right? Let's say he takes the people at Whole Cake Island, like himself, Cracker, and Oven, they're cooked. All right, we saw what happened to Cracker in the anime. It was implied in the manga as well. But Kuzan and Van Auger, they essentially no-diffed the guy. Right, we thought Darling was bad. Oh my god, Cracker got done way worse. So, if Cat goes there, I am expecting him to outright lose. Unless he has proper backup. Which is where Shanks could come in. Like if he goes in solo, it's just going to end up as another Moria situation where Moria goes there to avenge Absalom, and then Moria gets locked up in prison for like a month or 2. Yeah, I don't want that for Cat. I think that might be a little bit too repetitive. And of course, Blackbeard already has Garp as a prisoner. How many prisoners can Blackbeard have realistically? Garp, Kobe, Moria, Pudding. Who's next, right? Do not add Cat to the list, man. Do not add Cat to the list. As far as like staying and defending Whole Cake Island, I think he'll do that for the time being. But like I said, I don't think he's going to be stagnant. Whole Cake Island is massive. Even if Cat leaves Whole Cake Island, they still have some decent hitters there, right? You got Cracker, you got Opper, you got Amande. There's so many Big Mom kids that can actually fight that if Cat goes, I think that'd be A-okay, right? It's not like Whole Cake Island would be open season for Pirates. No. Not by a long shot, right? You still have to tussle with the crew. And that crew is not weak. You know, maybe if you look at the Yonko, maybe if you look at the prominent players of the world, yeah, they could run through Whole Cake Island. But let's be real, 90% of the verse would still get smoked there. So yeah, I lean towards the 7% regrouping and then going after Pudding. If I wanted to eliminate this, I'd just say, yeah, they go after Pudding. So let's see what people are saying here. The move for Katakuri to rescue Pudding is going to be a huge deal, meaning we'll get an epic fight between Katakuri's fleet and the terrifying Blackbeard pirates. This massive battle will settle what happens to Pudding and show how strong the top pirate crews are right now. Additionally, it might even force Katakuri to team up with Trafalgar Law, who wants to save his crew, against their common enemy, which would be totally wild and fire. Hell, dude, that's what I'm saying. Cat cannot go at this alone. Law, great candidate. Shanks, another great candidate. Hell, he could even team up with Kid, right? He just needs somebody on his side. Hell, even the Straw Hats, I think, would work perfectly here. And you gotta admit, the Straw Hats and Cat both have a vested interest when it comes to saving Pudding. Pudding is not a nobody, right? I think people definitely undersell Pudding's importance. I mean, minus the Three-Eyed Tribe, that's like a whole thing about how she could read the poneglyphs, etc., awakening the eye. But Luffy considers her a friend. Sanji considers her a friend. Nami considers her a friend. She is an ally with the Straw Hats. She was pivotal when it came to escaping Whole Cake Island. The minute Luffy and Sanji realize that she is captured, hell, even Nami, when they figure that out, it's over. Right, I do think that they would try to rescue Pudding. And of course, Blackbeard has Garp, right? Maybe Luffy says, oh, you know, Garp has his own adventures. Garp knows what he's doing. That could be the case. Don't know for sure. But Pudding, no. We draw the line there. I think that Sanji would plead his case, say, hey, Luffy, can we go? Luffy would say, of course, Sanji, we're already going there, man. I think the team up between Luffy and Cat would feed generations. I'm not even joking, man. And Cat's such a good guy. You know, maybe I'm glazing Cat a little bit too hard. It's like I'm, you know, Brago's burner account here, his mouthpiece. But I'm telling you, man, I do like Cat. And when it comes to getting along with top tiers, I think he is that guy. Between him, Luffy, him, Shanks, yeah, I think that's a slam dunk. I could see him searching for Luffy for help, and maybe being the reason they go after Blackbeard, assuming Luffy hasn't heard about Garp by that point. A team up with Cat would be so fun, but it would also allow him to potentially teach Sanji future sight for the final war. Ooh, that'd be nice. Also, Cat, as they mentioned in the previous polls in the comment section, you know, Cat was mirroring Luffy's abilities. Bro, imagine a double Gatling. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, Cat and Luffy team up, A1 stuff. Their whole crew is about family, so I don't see why he wouldn't go after Pudding, to be honest. Going to Wano to reclaim his birthright and eating Kaido's fruit. Okay, yeah, imagine that, right? Oh, Kaido's down for the count. Let's finish him off. I need that devil fruit. He pulls out like a knife in a black cloth just to throw it over him or something. Based on his actions in Film Red, I'm confident he will try to save Pudding like how he went to save Brule. That is true. Actually, you're so right. Brule captured, right? First thing Katakuri does, he goes after her. Yeah, Pudding is in safe hands. Well, if it's just Katakuri, not in safe hands, because I do think he would get ran through by the Blackbeard pirates. But if he has allies, different story. He be making Katakuri. Oda, has set this up pretty well, so if he doesn't go to rescue her, it would surprise me. Maybe we'll even get a Katakuri versus Kuzan fight, or at least a clash. That would be cool. That'd be really damn cool. I think Cat will be smarter than charge in head-on. Though he's all about protecting his family, he doesn't have a chance in hell against the full might of the Blackbeard Pirates. The Whitebeard Pirates lost to the Blackbeard Pirates before they got Kuzan and the majority of their devil fruits. The Blackbeard Pirates would crush the remnants of the Big Mom Pirates if they confronted them on their own. I could see them teaming up with someone to take them down, either Cross Guild or Luffy or Shanks, even teaming up with the other Whitebeard Pirates in a shared desire to get revenge on them. But I can't see Cat just going to Beehive expecting to actually get something done. Yes, he needs an ally, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it's gonna be the Whitebeard Pirates. Bro, if the Whitebeard Pirates come out and they lose again, that'd look bad. I mean, with what happened to Izo, maybe it's better if the Whitebeard Pirates stayed in the background. But, you know, jokes aside, I do wonder, and I might hold a poll on this later. You know, common theme there. I might hold a poll on this later. But will Jozu or Vista ever show up again? And if so, where? Would it actually be in a Blackbeard Pirate revenge match? Because that'd be a little bit silly, but I can't see what else they would actually do. Katakuri will try to get in contact with the Straw Hats to ask for assistance. Luffy would gladly help him, and Sanji would try to make the rescue priority number one. Yeah, do not underestimate Sanji and his girl. You know, in Pudding, right? Of course, Pudding removed the memory, but Pudding was Sanji's first legitimate kiss, right? That was like true love, brother. That was amazing. And, you know, I know people don't like romance in One Piece, but I do think if Sanji were to end up with somebody, it would probably be Pudding. Kind of like how Scopper, right? His Roger Pirate parallel, he ended up with a giant woman. Somebody who's not exactly human. I think Sanji might be the same way. So yeah, him and Pudding, I think that's a shoo-in. If he leaves Whole Cake and loses, which he will, it just opens up Whole Cake for invasion from other pirates. With grudges against Big Mom, he will try to save one and lose the rest of his family. Not necessarily. Like I said, I do think that Whole Cake is in good hands if he goes. Like, let's say he just takes himself an oven. They're fine with Cracker, right? And then, of course, Smoothie. We've never really seen Smoothie fight in the manga. In the anime, she does have a singular sword slash we've seen. But with Cracker and Smoothie, I think they're fine. And of course, if Big Mom is alive, she should be getting home pretty soon. That is left up in the air still. Defeats Mihawk in a 1v1 and takes over a Cross Guild. First Donuts, then Pudding. Yeah, that is pretty much how I feel about all this. I'm glad everybody's kind of in the same boat where Cat can't beat Blackbeard, but Cat also has great connections with other people. So now, the final poll. This one, super silly, but I asked the question. What is your favorite type of dragon? Subjective, no real right or wrong answers here, like most polls. Is it the Eastern Dragon, the Western Dragon, or Wyverns? Of course, if you know a lot about dragons, there's a lot more categories I could put on here, but I'm going to stick with these three right here because they are the most popular. And surprise, surprise, of course, only posted this 2 hours ago. Same with this poll, unfortunately, right? I wanted to get all the cat stuff out at the same time, so unfortunately, threw it up an hour ago, went over it an hour later. Sad to say, not enough input here. Maybe we'll come back later, but we'll see. But yes, earlier, Western Dragons were winning, but now, maybe it has to do with the time because it is now 2 a.m. and the people on the East are waking up. But Eastern Dragons are now winning with 43% of the votes. Westerns are at 38, and then Wyverns are at 19. Just in case you do not know the difference between any of these, Eastern Dragons are the ones that look like Kaido. They're long, they're skinny, they don't have like the traditional wings that dragons do. Instead, they have the flame clouds. Western Dragons are pretty much what you imagine when you think of a dragon. They have the wings and then the 4 dog-like legs on the ground. Okay, dog-like is the worst way to put it. But yeah, those are Western Dragons. And then Wyverns, they look like Western Dragons, but instead of having 4 legs on the ground, instead, the front 2 legs are attached to the wings. So they're more like upright for the most part. So, personally, I like Western Dragons. Western Dragons, Wyverns, and then Eastern Dragons would be last place for me. Hell, I would even put Worms before Eastern Dragon. Not like earthworms, but like worms like WYRMs, which is kind of like what Jupiter is, but if it was more like reptilian. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Eastern Dragons. I think that's because I'm Asian. You know, growing up, you know, I've been to a couple of Asian temples in the past, and I've seen a lot of these Eastern Dragons depicted, and I've never been the biggest fan of them. You know, I was always a big Western Dragon fan instead. I thought they looked cooler, they had better designs, more diversity, more powers even. I just love the good old Western Dragon. So, I threw this poll up because, of course, you know, we're talking about Katakuri and about the whole Azure Dragon Devil Fruit, so I was like, it's kind of relevant. Let's just see the comments here. Western Dragons look totally awesome because they're huge and built like giant lizards. They're like living tanks, super muscled, covered in tough scales like armor, and they have enormous wings and sharp claws, making them look really powerful and scary. I agree. You know, I think Western Dragons look fantastically scary. Eastern Dragons, not so much. Not so much. I like the ones that face east. Oh, God. Monkey D. Dragon? No. That's the worst type of dragon. Revolution? No. Give me oppression. Give me a Souls-style Western Dragon any day of the week over the Western ones. They just have more aura. The Eastern ones are still cool, though. Yeah? I like you say Souls-like, yeah. Dark Souls has some of the best dragons out there. Sai, you are a Monster Hunter gamer. You know damn well Wyverns are cool as hell. Here's a hot take. I do not like Rathians, Rathalos, Diablos, Gravios. I kind of like Kezus because they're crazy, but I don't like Wyverns, man. That's the thing. Like, they're not bad. They're not bad. They're just not my favorite. Asian Dragon always looks majestic, especially when they're floating / swimming in the air. Yeah, they do look majestic, but while they look majestic, they don't look like they could pack a punch. Shocked you didn't make Celestial an option. Maybe I should have. Celestial Dragon. That's a good one, actually. The elegance of the Eastern Dragon cannot be best. All of the above. I love all dragons. Damn, I'm also a Monster Hunter player. Whatever Smaug is, I guess, which I did respond to this. Apparently, Smaug in the books is a actual dragon, but in one of the movies, they made him a wyvern instead. I'm assuming whoever made the movie didn't know the difference and they just kind of went with it, but yeah. I think I like Yu-Gi-Oh! Dragons the best. You have robot dragons, dragons with blue eyes, dragons with red eyes, dragons with 3 hits. See, this is what I'm talking about here. Dragons have a lot of diversity to them, man. They do. And another reason why I held this poll, by the way, is because I do think that in the future of One Piece, we will get more Western Dragons. We got it here in the Ryuma flashback, in the Ryuma spinoff, which is more or less canon. We got a dragon at Punk Hazard, and then of course, there was a filler arc where Luffy and the gang met a Millennium Dragon. Go back to the Void Century, go up to the Holy Land, I promise you, we will get an actual Western Dragon again. Hell, the hoof of the Celestial Dragons. That is a dragon foot. You know what I mean? So we're gonna get these guys. I think there will be more lore in regards to them. And of course, right, early One Piece did focus in, or at least conceptually had a lot of dragon tones to it. Between Ryuma and one of the first iterations of One Piece was about Luffy and a dragon named Land, which is a silly dragon name, calling it Land. But yes, Oda has always been thinking about Western Dragons. So I do think they will make a comeback. And I'm excited for it, brother. I am excited for it. But alas, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I really freaking appreciate it. If you have the time, please check out my side channels here on the side. I got Syvduck, SYVDUCK here on YouTube. I post gameplay, clips, and all that good stuff over there. And I also have Somnus Reacts, where I drop anime reaction videos. Currently doing One Punch Man and One Piece, so check it out there. And that's pretty much it. You guys take care. Thank you again for watching, and stay safe, brothers.